Let's continue to read the book by Sam Harris, Waking Up, A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion. The Mystery of Consciousness. This is chapter 2. Investigating the nature of consciousness itself and transforming its contents through deliberate training is the basis of a spiritual life. In scientific terms, however, consciousness remains notoriously difficult to understand or even to define. In fact, many debates about its character have been waged without the participants finding even a common topic as a common ground. While we need not recapitulate the history of our confusion on this point, it will be useful to briefly examine why consciousness still poses a unique challenge to science. Having done so, we will see that spirituality is not just important for living a good life, it is actually essential for understanding the human mind. In one of the most influential essays on consciousness ever written, the philosopher Thomas Nagel asked us to consider what it is like to be a bat, B-A-T. His interest isn't in bats, but in how we define the concept of consciousness. Nagel argues that an organism is conscious if and only if there is something that it is like to be that organism, something that it is like for that organism. Let me repeat it again. If and only if there is something that it is like to be that organism, something that it is like for the organism. Whether you find that statement brilliant, trivial, or merely perplexing probably says a lot about your aptitude for philosophy. Brilliant and trivial can both be defended. But Nagel's claim needn't leave you confused. He is simply asking you to imagine trading places with a bat. If you would be left with any experience, however indescribable, some spectrum of sights, sounds, sensations, feelings, that is what consciousness is in the case of a bat. If being transformed into a bat were tantamount to annihilation, however, then bats are not conscious. Nagel's point is that whatever else consciousness may or may not entail in physical terms, the difference between it and unconsciousness is a matter of a subjective experience. Either the lights are on or they are not. But experience is one thing, and our growing scientific picture of reality is another. At this moment, you might be vividly aware of reading this book, but you are completely unaware of the electrochemical events occurring at each of the trillions of synapses in your brain. However much you may know about physics, chemistry, and biology, you live elsewhere. As a matter of your experience, you are not a body of atoms, molecules, and cells. You are consciousness and its ever-changing contents, passing through various stages of wakefulness and sleep from cradle to grave. And the question of how consciousness relates to the physical world remains famously unresolved. There are reasons to believe that it emerges on the basis of information processing in complex systems like a human brain, because when we look at the universe, we find it filled with similar structures, like stars and processes, like a nuclear fusion, that offer no outward signs of consciousness. But our intuitions here may not amount to much. After all, how would the sun appear if it were conscious? Perhaps exactly as it does now. Would you expect it to talk? And yet somehow it seems far less likely that the stars are conscious and simply mute than that they lack inner lives altogether. Whatever the ultimate relationship between consciousness and matter, almost everyone will agree that at some point in the development of complex organisms like ourselves, consciousness seems to emerge. This emergence does not depend on a change of materials, for you and I are built of the same atoms as a fern or a ham sandwich. Instead, the birth of consciousness must be the result of organization. Arranging atoms in certain ways appears to bring about an experience of a being, that very collection of atoms. This is undoubtedly one of the deepest mysteries given to us to contemplate. Nevertheless, Nagel was right to observe that the reality of consciousness is first and foremost subjective, for it is simply the fact of subjectivity itself, and whether something seems conscious from the outside is never quite the point. I happen to know a person who once woke up during a surgery for which he had received a general anesthetic. Owing to the paralytic component of the anesthesia, however, he was unable to signal to his doctors that he was awake and feeling rather more of the procedure than he lacked. This was inconvenient, to say the least, because they were in the process of replacing his liver. If you think the important part of a consciousness is linked to speech and behavior, spare a moment to consider the problem of anesthesia awareness. It is a cure for much bad philosophy. Okay, let me stop here.